Hi there. I just wanted to take you through something after I unchap my lips. Um, Everything is medicine. Once you start doing some type of energy work and you really shake things up and get your body cleansed of all of that negative chi, once you've been doing qigong for a long time, probably some type of spontaneous practice. That's how I got there quickly. Spontaneous practice. You start to become so sensitive to different types of energies, and it's not like, oh, I'm walking by this coffee cup and I sense the presence of the coffee cup or anything like that. Different things have different presences, like this rose or whatever. I can go up to it. I can sort of see its unique glowingness, its aura, or whatever you want to call it. But mostly it's just a very subtle thing. If I were surrounded by these flowers or whatever, then yeah, I'd be able to sense that specific type of energy much more easily. But it's not like, oh, I'm so sensitive. It's just your body becomes a receptor. And so if you decide to connect to something or whatever, then you'll have a very strong experience once you've, purified all the energy pathways in your body. And I'm not saying that all of mine are purified, but, I'm sensitive, more sensitive than other people. So that you'll have experiences like, I'm just finding little acupressure points or meridian points or whatever, and, I would, suddenly become completely aware of the path that they're in and have this big grin on my face because the energy is flowing smoothly. And when energy is flowing smoothly, our natural state is one of pleasure, love, bliss, relaxation, comfort. It's just difficult to describe. And a smile usually just happens naturally. Or one time I was with my friend we were just taking a walk. We decided to walk up this mountain / hill. It wasn't that huge. And we got up to the top, and I was just, doing some things and being a, natural wizard and finding strange sticks and drawing symbols, and, we were just being crazy. And my friend was sitting on the floor, and he was just sort of meditating a little bit, and then I came up to him, and I was like, and I took my and shoved some energy with this stick that I had found, and he started opening up in all these ways because I totally touched a really powerful acupressure point on the back of on his back, and he started feeling all this energy coming through, and he was moving and pushing it down into the ground. And then what was the funny part is I didn't know whether he was enjoying it or not. Then I found out he was. And so I just pulled it away, and he was just like, oh God, and he starts coughing and hacking, and it was, really an intense experience or whatever. I'm sorry, I should have kept going with that. Whatever, live and learn. But what my point is he's very sensitive, I'm very sensitive, and so those little tiny places or whatever, you can find with your fingers, you can find with a wand, you can find with a crystal, and all of a sudden, once you're sensitive and sensitized, you have those types of experiences, and they're really intense. So there was another time I was with my same spirit brother. We were hiking somewhere else, and he was doing the same thing to me. We found this gnarled up piece of driftwood. And it was really awesome looking, and he was like, oh, look at this, and it's coming out in all these different directions, and he's just holding it like this. So I was like, why don't you, use it to work on me or whatever? And he's just like, okay. And just spontaneously, and then pushes this thing at me, and I'm just like, and I could feel all the energy in the middle of my chest, and it's doing all these things, and, having an experience or whatever. And it's not in my head. I physically feel the energy that's doing it, and it causes the body to do certain things in response. Well, I just wanted to tell you what happened to me yesterday. I have had a hawk feather, I believe it's a hawk, for quite some time, just sitting on my altar. and sometimes I'll just pick it up and I'll use it to spread incense smoke to things on my altar around me, you know, to cleanse the area, etc., etc. Well, I've been watching a lot of Japanese movies that that highlight certain aspects of Japanese magic. Chinese magic also uses a fan, but these were Japanese movies that just got in my head or whatever, and he's using it and he's making incantations and you know, and speaking in tongues, you know. So he's going around his altar space, and all these weird things, you know. And I was like, that is so me. Why don't I have a fan, you know? And so as it's actually, I have a book that talks about the use of fans in Asian magic. I've talked about it before. It's called Magic, Shamanism, and Taoism, the I Ching in Ritual and Meditation. It's much more than that to me. Like, it talks about all kinds of stuff, Japanese and Chinese, but Taoist in common. Then it has a whole section on the I Ching and the hexagrams, what they mean. Anyway, talks about how important the fan is. Well, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll go buy a fan, a nice one, maybe just a, you know, plain wooden one to keep it natural, not hugely adorned, not plasticky, like from, you know, Cost Plus or whatever. Or a cheap import, rather. But, and I was just thinking, almost like, I've always wanted to attach this feather to something just to make a little implement. I was going to make a magical implement, and then I had this orchid branch, this twisty, beautiful thing, that I've been saving to make a wand out of for a really long time. And I've always felt that it's had a certain gnarly power. It's very thin, but for some reason I pick it up and it's a very obvious wand, you know, even though it's twisted and strange looking. So I picked it up, and then I picked up my feather. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to find something to attach this with. And then as I was saying that, this little piece of jade jumped out at me, and the string that it was hanging onto it. And it was like this thing was crafting itself yesterday. This implement crafted itself. Like, I was being pulled. All these things and these elements came together. And then as I was making it, I felt like I was in the way. Like, the spirit was really moving to make this thing happen. And it's not, you know, gorgeous, it's not hugely adorned or whatever, but this is what I ended up with. And strangely enough, when I hold it, especially in my left hand, the weight of this, and also that it's swinging freely, turns it sort of into a pendulum. And so I was just holding this thing, and all of a sudden it started leading me around the room, just like it's doing now. It's saying hello. And it will go up to things and sort of like sense them for a little while. And then it will make some kind of sweeping motion like this or whatever, and it just goes back and forth, and it cleanses things. It very often slows down tremendously. This is moving on by itself right now. I'm not controlling this, you know. I'm just letting it do what it does. And it led me around almost my entire room. It cleansed my bed. It cleansed my altar space. And then it set up barriers around the edges of my altar space. And I was just having a ball with this. And then it came to me. And it started coming down, and then it started working on my lower chakras. And this is what I'm talking about. Everything is medicine, and once your sensitivity increases, then you have really strange experiences. You don't need to be on drugs to have shamanic experiences when all of your energetic pathways have been cleared like this. And I don't know why Qigong masters don't really talk about these aspects of it. They must consider them side effects, sort of, but everything becomes medicine. And so it's doing these things to me, particularly around my lower back, where I have problems, and it pulls me to the ground all the way to the ground, and so I'm on the ground, and I seriously, like, reverted. Then it's coming up here, and it's doing things to my head, pulls my head to the ground. I had my head planted on the floor, like, making circles and making, like, little baby noises. You know, I was reverting back to an earlier form. It was just great. It felt really weird, and what was interesting to me, especially during the experience, is I could not get up. If somebody had walked in, they would have maybe tried to get me up off the floor or whatever, like, what the hell is wrong? And I would have stayed, because I couldn't get up. That's how strong this energy was that was keeping me there. And I was speaking not language of light, but like baby language. Like, it was that old, like that deep. It was like silly stuff, like stuff that I don't normally say. Like, when I speak in the language of light or whatever, it sounds sort of like a language. Well, this was just like, you know, like all this weird, crazy stuff was coming out of me, you know. And it was really awesome. I felt so good afterwards, just like, but at the same time, I felt almost nauseous, you know, because it was just like, oh, like this, you know, this amazing force or whatever, pulling all of this stuff out of me. And then once it was, you know, really clear, then I would have a, like, you know, all this stuff, like this higher energy come up through me or whatever to clear me that way. And I was yelling and growling and doing all this stuff. That hasn't happened to me in a really long time. You know, I talk about all these other things, and I'm doing these amazing practices, and I can feel a lot of bliss just doing the qigong that I have been doing. But this is really what I used to be all about. I was about the intense experience, and when I say intense experience, this is what I'm talking about usually. Hooking into something and losing a piece of yourself, becoming completely vulnerable and being purified through that, thinking you're going to die. I've had that happen on several occasions, you know, and that's what I would call a real shamanic experience. And this is what this was for me. I dedicated this stick, fan, implement, sacred implement, and as soon as I dedicated it, it dedicated me. You know, it started working on me. And if you're not open to energy, if you're not sensitizing yourself, if you're not removing those blockages and getting all that crap out and bringing in new energy and hopefully eventually storing it up, then you're never going to be able to experience things like that unless you're probably on drugs. At least, like, you know, I would have experiences like that on certain substances, which shall remain nameless. This was a long time ago. But you can get there now without them, eventually. So that's all. I just wanted to talk about that experience. Is there anything else that was salient about it? It was really awesome. I sometimes forget that everything is medicine and that you can get to these places, you know, these really amazing places, and have purifying, beautiful, glowing experiences, or crazy experiences where you feel like a child and you're kicking and screaming on the floor, you know, and you can't get up, with the use of nothing at all. Alright. Just a little point on the fact that everything is medicine, the other things that are medicine. When you become increasingly sensitive, then you can energize water. Little things of water. I would make spirit water and sprinkle it around my altar and put it on me, and I'd start to open up and feel energy run through me and all that kind of stuff, and it's really gorgeous and beautiful. I have a little thing of sacred oil that I always use when I'm doing healings and stuff like that. Which is just a sensitizing type of oil. It's got like eucalyptus and tea tree and like lavender and a couple different things that I threw in there. And, you know, bless that with energy, run energy through that, and then once you're sensitive enough, then you can tell what it does to you energetically. It becomes pretty obvious. These different things like branches and sticks or whatever, like, always have a tremendous amount of energy in them. let's see, trees. Trees are crazy. Once you become sensitized in this way, you can just stand by a tree and you'll feel its presence, and then if it does actually want to connect with you or allows you to connect with it, then you'll be straightened up to the tree and you'll feel the energy of the tree running through you, and it will heal you. It's really interesting. I suppose crystals are the same way, but everybody thinks of crystals like as medicine, so yeah, okay. So then everything becomes medicine. Everything can become medicine. All right. Even plants that are harmful for you, you won't be ingesting them, of course, but oleander has some beneficial properties, some chemical in it or whatever that's beneficial for the heart. You can take an oleander flower or whatever and infuse water with this energy without actually putting the oleander in the water or whatever, and know that that's happening, and bless it in that fashion or whatever, and then energize the water, and then once you're sensitive enough, you can use that water to cleanse yourself, and it will have a beneficial effect on different systems of your body without ever ingesting it or getting it on your skin because it is poisonous. But just different things like that, you know? Yeah. Whereas if you're not doing any type of energy work, if you're not purifying, if you're not cleansing your body of that murky chi, then you're not going to be able to notice these things as easily, if at all. There we go.